In this tutorial, I am going to discuss how to create a Zentangle. A Zentangle is just a fancy word for a pattern, but an artist has actually designed this pattern and given you step-by-step instructions on how to draw the pattern. So sometimes when you look at the end result, it looks really tricky, but if you follow one step at a time, and it's usually what's in red in the box, then it breaks it down and it's actually not that difficult. There are a variety of books in the art room with Zentangle patterns and their directions, but you can very easily Google search Zentangles and a ton come up. I like to sometimes compare it to this. I've seen kids do this before, and it's one of those things that somewhere along the line, someone taught you how to do this. And when you see it finished, it looks really tricky. I call that the middle school S. When you see it finished, it looks really tricky, but if you break it down into the various steps, it really isn't. So this Zentangle called Asian Fan, it looks really tricky, but we're gonna follow the steps. The box below is gonna be where I'm gonna work the Zentangle in. That's just a basic thing to do it in a square. However, in our artwork, we'll often be working it into various shapes. Anyway, the first step is in red here, and I'm not sure if my camera is going to reverse it, but the first step is this one here, and it's telling me to do sets of wavy lines. So in the square down here, and I'm working right in Sharpie, and if you're not as confident, you could work in pencil first. One of the ideas behind Zentangle, because the word Zen is in there, it's supposed to be relaxing. It's even referred to as yoga for the brain. And the idea behind it is really you should work right in Sharpie, because in life sometimes you're going to make mistakes that you can't erase. And although you can't erase them, you can kind of like fix them. You can do something to change it to make it better. So in this one, they fit far more wavy stripes than I did, but that's okay. I don't mind. In the second step, I'm going to start doing this little fan-like thing. And I'm noticing that it starts right underneath a curve. So that's what I'm going to do. And I don't think it would matter so much, but I'm going to kind of break it up like this. The center one and the widest ones. And then it looks like there's two in each. I like to kind of think of things in steps like that, but I don't think it is that necessary that you think of it like that. The next one is going to be upside down, and it's going to fit in this curve here. So I'm going to keep doing that and repeating that. And I'm going to do another one here, and you can see my marker is a little bit fat for some of these that I'm doing, but again, I'm not worried. If I go too narrow, I'm just going to do fewer of those. Now, ultimately, in a Zentangle, you'll get to a point where you're off the shape, so to speak. And so I would just kind of think about where it would connect and go ahead and just figure out how far I can get it and go to the edge, like as if you can imagine it going forward. And I could fit one here. And I can fit two, but I could have probably not. I kind of like that mine's a little different because my marker's fatter, and so I'm getting this darker value where they all come close together. I kind of like the effect that I'm getting from that. And so we'll call that a happy accident. So it looks like I would skip inside here and I would go to the next shape. Probably be easier to work in this one here because I can see the whole shape. And again, if I worked in a thinner marker, I'd have more space between these, but I ended up liking the effect, so I'm not worried. And I would keep going. I'm not going to have you watch me do the whole thing. When you get to a half of a shape like here, you just kind of got to imagine what it would do. So for this one, it would be up in this section here, and you'd only see some of these. I'm not even going to draw all of them. This one would probably fan down, and I can get my middle section, but you could see they're not going to go all the way up to the point because I don't have room for that. And that one I'm just going to kind of fill in. So it's going to be kind of, if it was a whole sheet of paper, I'd call it off the page, but I'm going to call it off the shape. And then you could see there's different variations, and oftentimes in Zentangle books, they will give you different variations. That one's a little off. I might add one there. But I could fill this in, which I did go over the line a little bit. I could fill this in black. But if I were doing a color piece, maybe I would decide to fill this in with a different color. So I'm not going to really fill it in right now because I'll kind of decide later if I would want to fill that in color or to do it in solid black. All right, so that is the Asian fan. Again, I just did a variation because I didn't fill in. I'm going to show you one more in my sketchbook that is my absolute favorite Zentangle, and I don't have the tutorial with me, but it's the one that I always do for kids. So let me just draw a quick square. It's not going to be perfect because I'm not using a ruler. And so you can see it's not perfect, but there's a square, and I'm going to draw. The first step of my favorite Zentangle is to do a series of circles that all line up in rows and columns. Now, I didn't plan it so that they work out evenly because I know that if I was drawing something, they're not always going to work out evenly to have however much space. And you probably can't see that one. So that's the first step. The next step in my favorite Zentangle is to do sort of a very flattened S curve. I'm going to go from the left side of this circle to the right side of that circle. Sorry, I got to move my fingers here. A little bit difficult to do. And I'm going to go and do that to each one. Left to the right side, left to the right side, left. And see, that one's off the page, so I'm just going to imagine where it would go. Or off the shape, not really off the page. Same thing with that one. I don't have space. Same thing with these. I'm not going to get to the other side of the S curve, but that's okay. And then for these, I'm going to actually have the bottom of the S curve, so it's a little more awkward, but I got it. And then the last step for my favorite Zentangle is to go from the bottom of the circle to the top of the next circle. So I'm going to try to do that in a way that you can see it. I apologize if my hands are in the way. You'll see when I lift a little bit better. Bottom to top, 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 bottom to top. And then I have this here where it's kind of off the page and it would have been going from the bottom to the top. So I'm going to make sure I follow that along. And this one, there's all sorts of variations. Oops, I forgot one. But a lot of times people will color in this, and I often do. And then sometimes in this one, because there's so many variations, sometimes you can use this, and you'll see this in a coming up project, you can use this and color this differently, like a checkerboard or what have you. I've seen where, and I'm going to do this quickly in pencil, I've seen where people will put an inner shape in here, like this, and keep going with it. You can do all sorts of things. I tend to leave it as is and sometimes do them smaller and sometimes do them larger. But when you go and you Google how to Zentangle, it'll show you the steps just like this. And the great thing about Zentangle is you will end up loving some and not liking others. And in the resources, there will be a practice page. And you'll just go and you'll look for one. You'll try it. You either will like it or you won't. And then at the end, when you have all your practice Zentangles, you pick the ones that you think you did the best, the ones that end up being your go-to, your favorite one to do, such as that one is for me. All right, that is Zentangle. There will be resources about it, and we will use it various times throughout the school year.